Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
More than a dozen federal statistical agencies are falling behind on producing high-quality data sets that impact the U.S. economy and government policy. The American Statistical Association finds changes under the Trump administration have led to certain public-facing data sets being delayed, suspended, or canceled. It's also flagging declines in public trust scores in data sets produced by the federal government. Federal News Network's Jory Heckman is here with more details. Jory, great to have you on.
Hey, Terry. Great to be here.
Hey, just refresh our memory to start with. What agencies make up the federal statistical system?
So this is about 13 agencies that we're talking about altogether. A handful of them are headquartered within the Commerce Department, but this is a group of agencies that really exists all over. Over at the Labor Department, there's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. At the Justice Department, the Bureau of Justice Statistics. And over at the Education Department, at least for now, is the National Center for Education Statistics. Gives you a constellation of different data sets that for a lot of policymakers out there, for a lot of people who are have their finger on the pulse of the economy, these are very critical numbers for people to understand where things are going and where things are point in time in the moment.
Of those, certainly the Bureau of Labor Statistics has been in the headlines, but what other sorts of challenges are these agencies facing?
So these agencies, like so much of the federal workforce, they are dealing with deep cuts to staffing. In a recent report from the American Statistical Association, they find that these cuts range from anywhere from 20 to 30% of overall staffing at these statistical agencies. Some cuts are more severe than others. And this is something that is raising alarm bells for folks who are in this space. We heard recently from Nancy Potok. She's the former chief statistician of the United States, and she's a co-author of this report. And she says that these agencies have seen a severe decline in their ability to meet their mission and that the status quo is no longer satisfactory.
What most people noticed was that many statistical products just disappeared. They either were eliminated in terms of no data collection taking place, because contracts were cut or funding was cut or people weren't there, or because of the lack of staff.
How has the Trump administration reshaped how these statistical agencies actually work?
Beyond the budget cuts and the staffing cuts, the Trump administration has seen some high-profile situations where the president or his subordinates have stepped in and taken some actions here. One high-profile one this summer was Trump firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics after the agency produced monthly job numbers that were lower than folks had expected. And also, in recent months, the Social Security Administration's former chief data officer left the agency after filing a whistleblower complaint, alleging that the Department of Government Efficiency improperly put the sensitive data of more than 300 million Americans at risk, put it in an unsecured cloud environment that was vulnerable to adverse actors. Also, back in May, DOJ posted on its X account that the Census Bureau conducts more than 100 additional surveys beyond the 10-year population count that we're all familiar with. And DOJ, along with the Bureau, went through those surveys and got rid of 5 surveys that they deemed wasteful and obsolete.
What is the administration's position on all of these issues? I mean, these organizations have always been understood to be apolitical and objective.
We actually heard recently from the current chief statistician of the United States, Mike Calabria. He said in a keynote address at a think tank event that his priorities on the job are strengthening data security at statistical agencies and recognizing something that a lot of folks have pointed to, a long-term decline in response rates for those statistical surveys, something that is bedrock principle for these data sets to be any good.
You know, people are going to be more reluctant to respond if they don't believe that their data is going to be secure and protected. And of course, I'm, a very big privacy advocate, and I want to make sure that whatever we do collect does not get hacked or breached, or that people feel confident that the data that they give the government is not going to be shared in ways that they haven't consented to.
And that's Mike Calabria. He's the current chief statistician of the United States. I did reach out for comment as putting together the story, and I did hear back from a senior administration official, not as sympathetic as Calabria. They said that the report's findings amount to, quote, typical swamp lobbying.
Well, that's an interesting description. What does the public have to say about the statistical agencies and the value of their information?
Overall, these trust scores are in decline, and they have been for quite some time. The numbers cited by this report from the American Statistical Association show that the percentage of U.S. adults who trust federal statistics fell from 57% in June to 52% in September. These are data points collected by the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago. And the percentage of people who agree or strongly agree that they can trust federal statistical agency data and that they can keep their information confidential, that decreased by about 6% from 31% overall to 25% in that same time frame. It's worth pointing out that in addition to the things that we mentioned earlier with the Trump administration, there's been also some data sharing happening between agencies, most notably with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A lot of agencies are now sharing data with ICE, largely for immigration enforcement operations. And there have been a number of lawsuits that have been ongoing as a result of that. Just recently, in recent weeks, a federal judge did block the IRS from sharing data with ICE, and there are many other lawsuits like that still in the works.
Jory, as this federal statistical data becomes harder and harder to find, are there alternative data sets that folks can look to?
One thing worth flagging here is that the Data Foundation earlier this year did put together kind of a if you see something, say something type tool where people could report if data sets were missing, data sets that have always been publicly available, and to say if there are gaps in that data or if entire data sets have been pulled from .gov websites. That's one thing people have turned to. But some of these data sets, there really is no substitute for what these agencies have been able to produce. Of course, there are some proxies you can use to get around some of the gaps in the data, but a lot of the folks in this space, they are concerned that if these agencies aren't producing these data sets, then no one will be able to.
Federal News Network's Jory Heckman. Jory, thanks for pointing out this story for us.
Thanks, Terry.
You can find his story at federalnewsnetwork.com.